Here's a question for you. Do you plan on retiring or rotting? Everything I've seen in the last couple decades has been rotting. And I don't mean to sound rude. It has nothing against the people or what they accomplish in their life. And it has everything to do with our monetary system, the fiat dollar, which in 1971 basically gave the central banks the ability to create money and therefore devalue your wealth and steal your time. And so in this video, I'm going to compare the two, retiring in fiat and retiring in Bitcoin, because I really believe that in 20 years from now, our retirement is going to look much different, much better because of the saving technology called Bitcoin. And I want to share a quick story here before we get into the graphic here. And it was a conversation I had with an older man. He was probably in his mid 60s. So not older, but close to retirement, or he might have been retired actually already. But he told me that he has a new hope for life because of Bitcoin. He was a professional athlete who spent some time, still spends time playing the sport that he was professional at, but he's been plagued with injuries, and he's kind of going down the road of, I'm getting older, I'm losing hope, I'm losing energy, everything. That's the road that he was going on in the fiat world, in the fiat system. But since he discovered Bitcoin, he has a new hope for life, and he's actually going to a different country to have a surgery using stem cells in order to repair his ligaments and help him stretch out his life. That's the one theme that I've noticed between 20, 30, 40, 70-year-olds is that everybody has a new purpose, a new hope for the future that didn't exist 10 years ago. And that's a pretty big deal. That's a huge deal. And that's going to trickle into society, and it's going to give everybody a new hope for the future. Because if you think about it, and I want to show this, maybe I'll just show this chart. But big picture, this is kind of what we've seen happen, at least with my parents, with my grandparents over the last couple of decades. And they worked 50 years and they got a nice watch and maybe a nice party, maybe if they're lucky. And then they're kind of on their own, get to maybe travel for a couple of years. Maybe they get to cash out their house and move into a smaller house, which they're still paying way too much for. But then they get into the fixed income, right? And fixed income is okay in a society with a functioning monetary system that isn't devaluing and melting every single year, every single month. And so what happens is these people, they retire, they get into fixed income, and all of a sudden they see the costs of everything going up. So they might be making $2,000 a month on their pension, which they worked 50 years for. And all of a sudden their groceries go up, their rent goes up, and they don't have the ability to like get a second job or do something else. They're pretty much stuck. And so not only is their health and their energy deteriorating, but also their financial balance sheet is deteriorating because they saved in fiat. And that's a huge, huge problem. And so I want to share this little comparison that I have here. If I can bring it up. There it is. So here we go. Fiat retirement, Bitcoin retirement, rotting or thriving. And so again, this is kind of what I've seen over the last couple of decades is that once you get to a certain age, you don't really have hope for anything. Again, your health is going downhill. Your energy is going downhill. Your will to live is going downhill. And of course, your finances are going downhill because you're on a fixed income and all of the costs in your life are going up. And so you have to keep cutting back and keep cutting back. And it's just like, by the time you get to the end of it, it's sad. It's extremely sad to see what our society has turned into for retired people. Whereas with Bitcoin, people have new energy. They have hope for the future. They want to live longer because the longer they live, the more that their savings in Bitcoin is going to appreciate in purchasing power. And so both of these, if you're retired, you might have a fixed income if you stop working, and you might have a fixed income when you're on Bitcoin. Either way. But the difference here is this. In the fiat system, your costs are going to continually increase. And in Bitcoin, the costs are going to continually decrease. So that is a huge, huge difference right there. That's what I want to point all of the attention here to. So again, in fiat, if your savings are in the fiat dollar, every dollar that they print devalues yours. They steal your time that you put in to working for 40 years. I think that I saw something the other day where baby boomers worked for 40 years and then had 40% of their retirement slashed by how much money has been printed by the central banks in the last 5 years. So 40 years, 40% of that means that baby boomers essentially spent 17 years for nothing. 17 years for nothing. And so again, on a fixed income, you have the same amount of money coming into your bank account every single month. But the problem with fiat and when they print more money is that the costs around you continue going up. The rent has to go up because the landlords, their costs of everything is going up. Your food costs go up. Every single month you go to the grocery store, it costs a little bit more. So you just have to keep getting less and less and less. Whereas with Bitcoin, it does the opposite of that. You might have X amount of Bitcoin here. And over time, even though you're spending some of that Bitcoin, the purchasing power is not only being retained by that, but it's actually been going up at about 50 to 60% compounded every single year for the last 10 years. So your quality of life continues to decrease. Again, everything is going down, including your financial position, the older that you get. But with Bitcoin, it's the opposite. Every year that you live, whatever you've built up, whatever value you've added to the world and that you're saving your wealth in, the purchasing power actually goes up. And so the older that you get, the more purchasing power you're going to have. I know it sounds crazy to hear this because it's so backwards from the system that we come from here. But this is the difference here between fiat and Bitcoin. So every person that I've seen in my own family for the last, anybody who means anything to me, they didn't have much to pass down because by the time they get to that point in life, they've been fully deteriorated by their governments and the central banks. They have nothing to pass down. So could you imagine spending the last 10 years of your life knowing that, again, you're coming to the end of the road here, and every time you go to the grocery store, every time a new month's rent comes in, you know that that's cutting into your inheritance because it's getting more and more expensive, and your savings are just continually going down and down and down. Imagine what kind of impact that would have on your psyche at that point in your life. You worked your whole life. You worked as hard as you possibly could. And because of the governments and because of the central banks, you're pretty much left with nothing to leave to your kids. Stressful, sad, frustrating, everything you can think of. Whereas in Bitcoin, you have an inheritance that you can pass down that's actually going to continue to grow. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people watching this who are in that stage of their life right now. Maybe you're 50, 60, 70, and you're starting to think about these things. What am I going to pass down to my kids? What am I going to leave for my family? It's very stressful. And again, they're going through the exact same thing right now as the retired people, except they have the ability to actually get a promotion, get a better paying job, get a second job. Retired folks don't have that option. So with somebody who's that age, who's starting to think about what they're going to pass down to their family, the one thing I tell everybody is just get some Bitcoin. It doesn't have to be 70% of your portfolio. It doesn't have to be 20% of your portfolio, but just get some Bitcoin. Either pay somebody to help you protect it and set it up with your inheritance and the security and everything. And that's what you can leave to your kids. Even if you leave nothing else to your kids, that Bitcoin that you leave them is going to do more for them than you will ever imagine. So with Bitcoin, you can give them an inheritance that will continue to grow. Estate taxes. Not only does the government and central bank devalue your wealth every single year and steal the time that you put in, the value that you put into this world, they also tax you when you die. It's funny, but it's also horrific what's been happening in this world. So estate taxes, every time you have a savings account or a bank account or an investment account, as soon as you die, you're going to pay some tax on that, depending on what country you're in, I guess. But for the most part, you have an estate tax there. Whereas with Bitcoin, and I'm not going to say anything here that's going to get me any sort of trouble, but with Bitcoin, if you do things properly and you have things set up properly, you can essentially just pass down your private keys to your kids without really anybody knowing that you had that Bitcoin. Again, I'm not advocating that, but I'm saying it's a possibility. And finally here, one of my favorite things, this is a little shout out to Jerry. Jerry and I have been talking about this for a while now, in the sense that if you're saving your money in Bitcoin right now, they're going to build statues. It might not be your kids or their kids, but in 100 years from now, if you can get some Bitcoin and you can build a proper foundation around securing and protecting and allowing that to flow to your heirs, they are going to build statues for you. If you're here today and you do that properly, you do this whole thing, you take it seriously, you build a proper foundation, they are going to build statues for you in Bitcoin. In Fiat, unfortunately, you're not going to have any statues. So again, this isn't a doom and gloom. It's incredibly sad what has happened to our baby boomers and the generation before them. I think they were called the silent generation. How much of their time and energy and life has been stolen by the fiat dollar and what happened in 1971. But we're past that. We're moving into a different world now. We're moving into a world with Bitcoin as the reserve asset. And so the sooner that you can acknowledge this, you don't have to fully understand Bitcoin. And I'm going to tell you this, I've been in Bitcoin for over 5 years now, and a lot of hours every single day. And I'm still learning things every single day. So don't get into this expecting that you're going to be an expert and that you should be an expert and that you need to know all these things and that's incredibly complex and complicated. It's not. All you have to do at this point is just get some exposure to Bitcoin, because this could be the difference between you rotting and you thriving. The decisions that you make in these next couple of years are going to be the difference. And it's not only for you either. The nice thing is that not only are you going to thrive, but if you protect this Bitcoin, your family's going to thrive for the next 500 years. So again, get some exposure, take your time, take it slow, learn how to take self-custody of that Bitcoin over time, build the proper foundation, and you are going to be in a much different position than otherwise. Didn't even have my QR code up here. So this channel here, the 88 Sats radio channel, we don't have any sponsors. We are 100% funded by the community here. And so if you would like to support the channel, if you enjoy what I'm doing, if you've been learning anything or at least getting entertained by the 88 Sats radio channel and the clips, this is a good way to send some value this way. So you can scan this QR code. If you are watching this on your phone and you don't have the ability to do that, you can also just put this into your Lightning wallet, 88 Sats at speed.app. And that is a great way to support the channel. I don't know why I took it down. Anyways, I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're having the best day of your life today. I hope this made sense. Hopefully you can maybe share this with somebody who's approaching retirement, or, you know, we're all approaching retirement. And I think somebody who's 20 years old right now, if they start saving in Bitcoin, they're going to be retired much, much sooner. And they're going to have a much better life and quality of life than somebody who is saving in fiat or real estate or the stock market. That's the reality. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you on the next one. Bye-bye.